So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Is It That Bad? Where we take a look at an album that probably got like some mixed reviews, and we listen to it like years later, sometimes just when it comes out, with fresh ears, and we analyze it, and then we say, is it that bad or it isn't? So we have, the drill, people. We have 3 rounds. We have the first round where we give our first impressions. Then we have the second round where we pick 3 or sometimes 4 songs if it merits it. For this one, I dare to say we can pick 4. And then we do the last round where we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So today we're talking about an album by a band that's had, this band has had some bad luck and in the past. So we're talking about Suicide Silence, and this is their self-titled 2017 record. And I think Josh has it physically. So again, I'm joined again by JC Rock and Metal Reviews, Tom the Green Man, and for a second time on Is It That Bad, we have Josh Keech. He has a YouTube channel too, and he's a musician. So first of all, guys, how are you today?
Thanks. Mhm.
Awesome. So since this album, Josh really wanted to talk about this album, we'll start with him. So Josh, what was your first impression of Suicide Silence?
Okay, well, as I literally just said before we actually started recording, about 2 months ago, I got a package from one of my mates on YouTube, and in it contained quite a lot of Suicide Silence, pretty much almost their whole discography, apart from a couple of the new ones. And in it was this. And yeah, I'd never listened to it before, along with quite a lot of their albums. I'd listened to quite a lot of songs and a couple of albums, but not all of it. And I was getting through them, and I was enjoying them a lot. And then I got to this, and I'd heard some not great things about it before. So yeah, I've only heard it once and once only. I thought, because it's still quite it's still quite fresh in my memory, that I just thought I'm just gonna listen to it the once for that video that I did with the albums that I got sent. And then I thought, you know what, we could do a good Is It That Bad on it, because yeah, it's not the best, let's say. But yeah, that's my first impression of hearing it, really, was a couple of weeks ago, really, when I listened to all their albums. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, so yeah, so you got sent the album, so you listened to it. So what about you, Tom? What were your first impressions?
Yeah, well, I did look up the bands and tried to find out a bit more about them. And I thought, as this is like their, I say, mixed reception or negative reviews album, I thought I'd check out maybe a different album. I think it was The Black Crown. So I had an idea of what maybe the expectation of what they should sound like is versus this. Because as I understand it, this was a bit of a off-road trip for the band, going to have something that sounded a bit more like a new metal album. I say new metal, but I don't know so much if it's kind of not all out new metal. You can hear the new metal in the album, but there's some of their deathcore sound still there in some of the tracks. But yeah, it was a sort of I found the album a little bit odd, and like the structure of it and the songs, that there wasn't much in terms of anything that sort of felt like there were any interest, many, like there's usually hooks, right, that you like to go back to. And this was an album where I didn't find there was sort of so many of those. It was kind of a weird one, to be honest, this one. And I'll reserve my sort of final judgment for later. But yeah, apparently there was an album, the last one, to feature Alex Lopez on the drums. Not that I really know who that is, but yeah, I found that out as well.
Good. So what about you, JC? What was your first thoughts of listening to this?
I listened to this for the first time actually a couple hours before this recording. I was very busy this week this week, so I didn't have time to get to it until early this morning, and I did my notes and everything. I knew about this band. I think I listened to them like before this came out, so I knew them as a deathcore band. But then when this came out, I didn't really pay much attention. It's one of those bands that I like, but I'm not like a big fan of. I'm not like a major deathcore band. I thought this album was very different, and when I made my notes, I was like listing a lot of different like new metal bands that I thought they were like trying to sound like, specifically Deftones, Korn, and Slipknot. I'll probably mention them in more in the second round, but I felt they were trying very hard to be new metal by kind of like imitating like these other bands. So I think that's really what my first impression was. It was that they're like really trying too hard for a new metal sound. So that's it. That's my first impression. Yeah.
Nice. So I actually did listen to this when it came out because I wrote for a blog and they asked me to review it, and I think I compared it. That was in 2017. I said like this was like a Slipknot wannabe sound, or like I would say now Slipknot but Wish version, or how Slipknot actually sounds nowadays, basically. So yeah, when I listened to it, I thought it was strange. And you know what? I do not hate new metal. I actually like new metal bands. I disagree saying that Deftones is a new metal band. Deftones is just Deftones. They're on another playing field of music. I don't categorize them at that. But yeah, this album, it's it's very different. It's 44 minutes, but I don't know about you guys, but it felt fucking longer when I was listening to it. And yeah, it's a strange album. If you want to check out a band that's doing like, there's a few newer bands that are doing like new metal style, that sound like a Slipknot, like a band like Blood Youth, which are actually pretty good. So check out Blood Youth. They're a cool band. But yeah, I reviewed this when it came out and I wasn't too keen on it. So uh when I said, oh, when Josh said let's do this album, I had not heard this in years, and I am like, oh, I forgot what this album sounded like. I couldn't like, I had like a big, like it was one of those albums that I listened to, then my brain actually deleted right after I listened to it. So those are my first impressions. So Josh, we're going to round two, and I dare to say, can we pick four songs?
I could probably pick the whole album, to be honest.
Well, yeah, yeah, but let's stick to four songs.
Yeah,
So,
all right.
which four songs to you are the worst of the worst?
Right, okay. Well, the biggest obvious one is obviously the first song, Doris. Nah, that song is just pretty terrible. I didn't like the second song either, Silence. I just felt that was a bit of a weird one. Let's see. Hold Me Up, Hold Me Down. I didn't really like that one. And then after that, I kind of give up on the album, to be honest. But another one that stands out to be really strange is Conformity as well.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Into that one that much. And yeah, shout out to the last song as well. I just felt that one was really strange as well. So but yeah, I'll probably go with Doris, Silence, Hold Me Up, Hold Me Down, and Conformity for my four.
Yeah, who would name a song Doris? That's the most unsexy woman name ever. Like,
It's popular in the 1930s and 40s.
yeah. I feel like they're singing to someone from another decade. Like Doris, I met you in 1717. That sounds better. That's people will be like, is that what the song sounds like? No. So yeah, we have the 4 ones that Josh picked. So Tom, I see you struggling in your mind.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really like Listen much. So I think that's the third track on the album. Very chaotic. It's sort of got its sort of deathcore parts, I think, and then it pauses, and you have this long outro that's slightly atmospheric, but very doesn't feel, it feels very directionless, and he's just sort of the singer, Hernan's just kind of going, I'll listen, or something like that, and just repeating that towards the end. And you're thinking, please, I don't want to listen to you saying I'll listen anymore. And there's Hold Me Up, Hold Me Down, which I think was one Josh picked, and that's a pretty horrible track, to be honest. I mean, I'm not really a deathcore fan anyway, to be frank. There's a few bands I listen to, very selective deathcore bands, and I realised this is slightly less deathcore than the other albums I've heard from this band. But yeah, it just kind of got deeper into, he was showing off his deep growls in this track quite a bit, I thought. But yeah, I just found it just generally very uninteresting. Run sounded like Cold Chamber, but a bad version of Cold Chamber. I mean, I suppose out of all the tracks, though, that one was maybe a little bit more tolerable. And yeah, I'm picking it as one of my worst because it just kind of annoyed me. And then I think Conformity is the other one I didn't like, which Josh mentioned as well. That was just, oh God. But the thing is, by the time you get to that track, you're sort of, your hands are up in surrender, going, just please, enough.
You're like, I'm conformed.
I've conformed, yeah. If that stops the track,
yeah.
that's it.
A song that sounds like Cold Chamber. If it's worse than Cold Chamber, you're in fucking trouble. Like, I'm sorry, Cold Chamber. I used to like them back in the day, but now I can honestly say, like, Cold Chamber. They're like in the bottom half of. They're like in the scraping pool of new metal. So JC, you've been keeping these albums to the last minute, my man.
Okay, my first one, I'll go with Doris. It's I felt like the first few seconds was not too bad, or maybe the first maybe minute of the song. But then once they hit the chorus and they're singing the falsetto style or trying to sound like Deftones, that was the one I thought I kind of didn't like it. But then the breakdown in the second half was kind of weird, but okay, but still that's not a great song. The next one I chose was track 3, Listen. This one it's a 5.5 minute long song, but it just felt longer. It felt like it dragged on for a long time. It was this, they do that chugging style, seemed very repetitive, and they use different vocal styles. It just at 5.5 minutes, it just felt way too long. I'm gonna pick one note nobody mentioned yet. Dying in a Red Room. This was a single. It sounds just like the Deftones. I think if I heard this and I didn't look at the name of the band, I would probably think it was a Deftones song because it just sounded so much.
In a minute.
It sounded so much or at least they were trying to, but I mean, it was so obvious they were trying to recreate a Deftones song. So that's my 3, and the one that everyone picks, Conformity. It's like trying to sing like Corey Taylor. It's like a Slipknot ballad, but I think it's just the vocals, he was trying too hard to sound like Corey Taylor, and in the end, it kind of sounded strained. It was just trying too hard. So that's my number 4. So that's Conformity. Yeah.
Nice. So JC, they tried to sound like Deftones. They failed. No one can sound like my Chino Moreno. Only Chino Moreno. You see, I'm obsessed with Deftones, but yeah, no. So yeah, picking tracks out of this album is pretty darn easy because it's pretty bad. So I would go first of all with Doris because it's a strange album opener, and let's just say everyone's like saying I was reading the information about this album about like how for this record in particular the singer wanted to uh Hernan Hermida like wanted to show everyone his singing style. I'm sorry, I thought the singing of this album was atrocious. So if that is proper singing, I don't want to listen to what bad singing is. So Doris really starts the album bad. So I actually re-listened to this on Friday night before I was going to go out. And when I got to the first and second two track, I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I had forgotten how bad this was. Because it's also, I know they put like new metal, but they're trying to be like atmospheric at times,
Mm.
like a bad atmospheric too. Like, and sometimes I think like everything sounds like the vocals sound like weird, and sometimes the music sounds not in sync. So I think the production of this album is shit. I would compare it to the production on the album of that 6 Feet Under that we did on this episode. This that 6 Feet Under and this record are like competing for like the worst productions on a record that we covered on this series. I mean, it's just atrocious. I would ask Josh, you know, you doing being a musician, like uh, the production on this is terrible, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like they wanted to try and make it sound like it came out in the sort of mid to late 90s. A lot of bands kind of tried to do that in the sort of mid to late 2010s. I don't know why, but yeah, they definitely went for something like that, and no, it didn't sound good at all. It just sounded weird.
Yeah. So I'm picking a different song, the Zero. I just thought I'm like, what the fuck is the Zero? And it was like also like super. There's a problem with these songs. They're like kind of like super long. And my I could pick the last one, but I think Conformity is one of the worst tracks on this. He's like saying, I don't want to conformity. I'm like, you did conform. You put out this shit into the world, man. You basically that's the definition of conformity to like this is beyond mediocre. And again, I thought that they were trying to sound like a that song sounded like JC said, like Corey Taylor. It was like a bad version of Snuff. Like he was trying to like channel his inner Corey Taylor, but I think the singing is just atrocious. So we've all picked 4 songs. So now we're going to the vote, which I don't think should be a shocker. So Josh, final thoughts on this album, and thumbs up or thumbs down.
Well, it's not just a thumbs down. I think it's a 2 thumbs down. This album compared with their like other albums, especially the ones they've done after this. Like, I don't know what they were doing with this album. I don't know what they were thinking. I know they've, like, as Tom said earlier, like on the Black Crown, they kind of went for starting to add more of that new metal elements in then. But for the one after that, which was the first with Eddie on the vocals, that was a lot better. It sounded more deathcore-y and was, you know, they were kind of starting to get some really good momentum. And then they put this out and all the momentum just goes, you know, it's just, you know, everything about it. I don't know why they decided that they wanted to push the new metal more and go into the more like sort of late 90s metal sound. I just don't get it. And you know, I was warned about the album, and you know, going into it, I just thought, right, let's just listen to it with no expectation, and it superseded even that. You know, that's how bad it is. And by the end of it, I was just I just kept it on in the background, but turned it really down, and just ended up doing stuff on my phone because I kind of got fed up with it after about 4 songs. So yeah, it's a definite thumbs down for me, and I'll probably never listen to it ever again.
So Josh, you have the physical copy. you should take the physical copy and throw it in the trash right now.
Yeah, just away with it.
No, really throw it. So now we're going. Good man, throw that shit. So now we are going to talk with Tom. Tom, final thoughts and rating?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a foregone conclusion with this album. Almost definitely is a thumbs down. And I think the way Josh puts it, I mean, it's funny that Josh, you said you got a warning. There should have been a label on the actual CD cover with a warning on the label. You know how you sometimes get parental advisory? Maybe this one should just be a different kind of advisory to do not listen to this or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, I try to find one or two redeeming. I usually try and find something quite positive. This was a difficult one to find much positive. I thought I think it's the second single on the album, Silence, the Silence track, had a sort of bouncy riff. When I first heard the song, I thought, oh, that sounds all right. You know, it's got a kind of bouncy pogo stick like riff. But by the third listen of that song, I thought, no, that's still not really very good. I was sort of one of those tracks that I wanted to like because I was struggling so much with the album, but it still didn't really do anything much. And Dying in a Red Room, the track which JC was talking about, saying it sort of. Now, I think if you've got another band to do that song, it might be slightly better. So actually, if, you know, the Deftones comparison, that was actually the band that I was thinking of, but I didn't think it. I thought, you know, if you had the Deftones actually doing that track, it would be better, because it's kind of got. It definitely has. Like, I can hear it in that song, but it's just so badly executed. And the other thing is the vocals sound pretty off key, and I think partly because they're going for that era when you had a lot of off key vocals. I think anyway. He was sort of obviously trying to do that, I think maybe deliberately, but also maybe, as Hector, you've been saying, it might just been bad singing, to be honest. I don't know vocalists well enough. The deathcore stuff I've listened to from them otherwise, I think it was the background sounded quite good. That sounded a bit more like, you know, what you might expect. And there were a couple of good tracks I was listening to earlier from them. I thought, yeah, this seems like this was a bit of a strange decision to take for this album. So yeah, overall, thumbs down. Yeah, definitely cast it to the flames in the dumpster fire with some of those other records we put in there.
Yeah. And also, if you wanna, I said about a band that is doing this style that does good, but there's another one actually from the UK. They're called Loaf, and they put out an amazing album in 2020, and they got like a Deftones vibe to them. They're the only band that I can say that actually kind of do it right. So if you haven't listened to that band, listen to them. They're pretty cool. So JC, your final thoughts and rating?
Yeah, it's going to be a thumbs down for me. Also, I think, like I was saying before, they were trying too hard to sound like a new metal band. I think if they wanted to change their style, or I think bands in general, if they want to change their style, I think it's best if it's done like gradually over a few albums. I think if they kept some more of their traditional deathcore sounds into this album, and then maybe incorporated a little more, a little more clean singing, but like used it like more sparingly, it might have been better. But I think they tried to change like too much for one album, and I think that was the biggest problem with this. I would say I don't think there are any songs that I'm saying, oh, like I like, sometimes when we do these reviews, I can pick out one or two songs. I can say, oh, that sounds okay, but everything was either I didn't like or just like forgettable. So for that's it's a thumbs down for me. I don't think I'll probably go back to this at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So that leaves me. And before I give my conclusion, I want to read something that I heard from this album about the fans' reaction when this album came out. So the album's musical style and clean singing had received a largely negative reception from the fans. Fan backlash to Suicide Silence perceived drastic change in musical style was so overwhelming to the point that they opened a change.org petition calling for the album's release to be halted, amazed over 5,000 signatures from disgruntled fans. So
Wow.
fans were so pissed that they actually did a change.org for this album to please do not put it out or re-record it, which I think is hilarious. So
Wow.
yeah,
Deathcore fans are pretty passionate.
yes. And I don't know why, because I'm sorry, people, deathcore is one of the worst genres in metal, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm not doing so.
yeah. And to be honest, I've always found that Suicide Silence sounded like shit anyway. So I don't care if they're deathcore, new metal, they have always sucked in my book. Uh, they have a few songs that are okay, but I've never been like a Suicide Silence fan. And when I was like researching this in Google or Facebook, I got like, I'm like, are you okay? I'm like, oh God, yes, I'm okay. I just want to listen to this album. Really,
Yeah,
are
I
you
got that as well.
like, do you need to call us? I'm like, who in Facebook is gonna call me? Like, is Mark Zuckerberg gonna call me? Like, no, Hector, don't do it. Like, what the hell? But yeah, this album, it's a thumbs down. This is an unlistenable album. I'm telling you, this one and that 6 Feet Under record are tied for the most unlistenable. Like with that 6 Feet Under, I got a headache. With this one, I was like so annoyed. And there's like a part in Doris where he does like a like he does like a Michael Jackson noise. I don't know if you all caught that or something that he does. I'm like, is that you, Michael? Did they channel Michael Jackson for that song? But yeah, it's just an atrocious album that I won't want to listen to this ever again. And I actually reviewed the last Suicide Silence record that came out this year, and I said it was okay. If you ask me now, I can't remember any track from it, but I'm not a huge fan of this band. So people, we want to listen to you, hear from you. What do you think of Suicide Silence self-titled from 2017? Uh, were you one of the people that signed that change.org so this album wouldn't come out? And also, or do you actually think there's some good tracks on this? We would really want to know. So please, again, please subscribe to my my friends' channels. You got Race JC Rock and Metal Reviews. He's already in the 2000 mark. He's getting so big that he's gonna be like Justin Timberlake from NSYNC, and he's gonna be like, no, I can't work with you guys anymore. I'm going solo. He'll be like, I do not need you. But yeah, no, all joking aside, JC Rock'n'Metal, he does great album reviews. He gives you like a history of the band, like you find things that not even Wikipedia knows. And so, and subscribe to Tom the Green Man's channel if you want to know about you have metal reviews, shoegaze reviews. Also, he talks about like horror, fantasy. Like if you want to know about like fantasy, like which fantasy books you should read and which one you should stay away from, Tom's the man. Plus, when the actor from Saw retires, he's going to be the new Jigsaw. And finally, you can subscribe to Josh Keech's channel. He does more like instead of album reviews, he does more like discussions of music. Plus, he also whips out his guitar and plays some covers or also songs from him. And I think you should do like a version of this Suicide album. like this is how you should have played that song. So please subscribe to him. And I'm like 4 subscribes away from 1,000. So
Yeah.
please do it. So, but this week it has been annoying. I get to 997, then I get 2 subscribe. I'm like, what the hell? Like, stop playing with me, people. I'm right there. Stop playing with my feelings. So, please subscribe because we're gonna have more content. So for this year, this is the final Is It That Bad of this year because we're going to the holidays. But next year we're gonna be back bigger and better with more crappy albums for you. And since this year we're doing new albums as well, not just old albums. So we're gonna do that next year, and I'll try to have more YouTubers as guests and more musicians to guest on some of the episodes. So until next time, people, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.